Hello everyone, this quick hit is to inform you about the informative speech. Hopefully I'll be able to answer some questions that you might have in regards to this speech as it is coming up fairly soon. If after going through this quick hit that you still have questions, please do not hesitate to ask me and I'll try to answer them as best as possible. And also put them on the discussion board because it's possibly a question that other students might have in the class as well. So you might be asking yourself, what exactly are we writing about when it comes to the informative speech over our base company? You're going to deliver an informative speech based around your base company, and all you're doing is informing us about certain key topics about this particular company. The first thing you want to inform us about is your awareness of their organizational structure and their culture, looking at their organizational hierarchy, their table of organizations, maybe their motto, their mission statements, things of that nature. The second thing you'll be informing us about is the form of communications occurring. So you'll need to research this company and ask yourself, do they have internal what is their internal and external communication structure like? Internal, is it upward, downward, horizontal communication? External, are there customer service lines, advertising? Are there customer CSRs, customer service representatives? Is there a phone bank? Do they work in some sort of cubicle system, things of that nature? And what's the communication happening in and around the company? How do you think they communicate, or how do they communicate via the information that you've seen? Is it mostly via email? Do they have instant messaging? Is it face-to-face communication? Things of that nature. Do they do video conferencing, Skype, things of that nature? And then the third thing you want to look for in this speech, or you want to inform us about in this speech, is indicate any strengths and weaknesses. Notice I say both strengths and weaknesses. Sure, some of the companies that you work for might be that you have indicated is your base company because it's your dream job, you really want to work for them, and we can't get this bias into our system, this positivity bias that they do everything right all the time. There are cons or negatives about every single company or corporation out there, so you also want to inform us about their negatives or their weaknesses as well, and then inform us about what do you think they can do to improve on those particular weaknesses. You're going to include some sort of visual aid with this. Not only that, with a visual aid such as a PowerPoint, you're helping us facilitate the flow of the communication that you have. With us as the audience, the PowerPoint or the Prezi should be able to help you emphasize certain things that you are communicating about. Keep in mind, the whole point of a PowerPoint or a Prezi isn't just to put your speech on there, it's for emphasis, so you want to be aware of that. So the whole purpose of this speech, and why we're doing it in this class, it's giving you an opportunity to research, observe, evaluate, and critically evaluate the company in which you choose to work for. Keep in mind, and I will tell you guys this from personal experience, there might be a dream job, a dream company, a dream something that you want to work for, and then you start to research that dream company or corporation, and then you think to yourself, oh, this really isn't the place that I want to work, now that I know all this information. So that's what this speech is designed to do. I'm going to upload a sample outline. You aren't required to turn in an outline, but it's helpful to outline your speech so that you're not A, speaking via note cards, but B, so that you understand how to properly write a speech. Part of the speech-making process, and we only do one speech in here, the informative speech, but part of the speech-making process is to create an outline for better flow when it comes to communication. So please see the sample outline uploaded. This should be able to help you. As I said before, while we're not grading a speech, while I'm not grading the outline, because we don't specifically talk about outlining in this course, I do want you to be aware that there is a proper outline format that helps when it comes to public speaking. So let's get into the depths of your speech itself. So what I'm going to go over these next few slides should be able to help you when it comes to the speech-making process. First things first, when it comes to public speaking, there's always going to be a thesis statement. This is similar to in your English classes when you're writing your essays. And even in your group project, if you choose the essay one for this class, you still need to have a thesis statement, which is just the overall argument that you're making. Remember, the thesis statement isn't isn't your preview of your main ideas. It isn't what you're here to do, but a thesis statement overall is a declarative statement that focuses on the message of why you're giving this speech. What is it that you're here to do? What is it that you want the audience to understand? I always say your thesis statement is answering the question, why is the audience member listening? And when we talk about a thesis statement, you need to make this relevant to your audience and understand that this builds from some sort of social significance, some sort of impact. The thesis statement is going to always be in your introduction, but you're also going to state it in the conclusion as well. So as you're mapping out your speech, remember, you should ask yourself, what is my thesis statement? What is the overall argument? Is the overall argument that I'm trying to get for this speech is that I want the audience to understand more about Starbucks or more about Chick-fil-A, because this is one of the greatest companies in the United States today that's helping pump money back into the economy. Whatever it is that you want your overall argument to be, make sure that you have a well-developed thesis statement in your speech. So now the question becomes, how do we put stuff in our speech? And that's the best word I can use, stuff, because when you say stuff, you're encompassing both support and evidence. Evidence in your speech helps you with argumentation. So some of you might use personal experience. I think some of you in this class currently work for your dream company and you're just trying to move up. You can use personal experience, but you should keep in mind personal experience doesn't count as a source. Rather, it serves as support and an example. So don't think because I'm using my personal experience that counts as one of my sources for the speech, because that's not how that works. The only way a personal information would count as a source is if you personally wrote a book or you personally published a journal article, things of that nature. For the most part, you all are going to get stuff from the internet. You're probably going to get stuff from your company webpage, but you could also pull stuff from books, magazines, or journals. We just need to make sure that they are credible in nature, and also we need to cite the dates of those particular sources. So if it's from a book, you're going to look at the copyright date. If it's a magazine, you're looking at the date that it was published. And for magazines, it's usually the month and the year, or the season and the year. So November 2017 or fall 2017. And with a magazine, make sure it's a credible one. Credible magazines such as Time, Business Insider, U.S. News and World Report. Magazines that aren't credible, People Espanol, Vogue, things of that nature. So you just want to make sure that you're aware of that. Notice I have journals there. Journals coincides with electronic databases right here. You have access to these electronic databases as a Lone Star College student. JSTOR, Academic Search Complete, LexisNexis, all of these are going to 95 to 99% of the time pull you back credible information. So this is where you need to be looking for your sources. LexisNexis is probably a really good option for undergraduate work. And because this is an online class, you may be thinking to yourself, oh man, I have to go up to campus to do some research. And my response to you is actually you do not. If you have your Lone Star ID card. If you have your Lone Star College ID, you can use, I believe it's the 14-digit number on the back of your ID to log in from your home computer to get access to the electronic databases. Just go to the library homepage for Lone Star College and you should see an access point for students. I'm just going to be flat out honest. Most of you are probably going to get your information by Googling. It's not necessarily the best. Why? Because now we have to work a little harder to determine, is this website credible that I'm using in my speech? I offer this to my public speaking classes and my intro classes, and I'm amazed at the amount of students who don't take me up on my offer. My offer always is this: if you question the credibility of a website, just send it to me and I will respond back, yes, this is pretty good, this is credible, this is relevant to your base company and to the information that you're going to provide in your speech. Or I will respond, no, this is not a credible website. You have to determine its credibility. However, if I'm listening to your speech and you tell me a website and I stop your speech and Google it and deem it's not credible, then that'll be points deducted from your speech. So you want to be aware of this when we just randomly take stuff off the internet. And I doubt anybody will go to your base company to do an interview. I'm not saying that to be mean or horrible. I'm just saying that interviews take a lot of time, and we don't have a lot of time for this class. But if you ever interview someone for a public speech outside of this classroom, you always want to determine how credible they are and how scholarly they are in this particular discipline or subject. So I do encourage you to rehearse your speech. Just practice the whole speech in order for you to get an accurate time. And you want to practice in similar conditions. I assume most of you will do your speeches at your house. Keep this in mind. You should be doing this in the most possible mimicking of a classroom setting. For students who do speeches online, that's typically either around a dining room table or around a kitchen table or in the living room. Those are I'm okay with that. I'm not gonna get all bent out of shape by that. I also have had students come up to campus to do their speech in one of our campus classrooms or one of the classrooms in the library. They just rented out a space, and 6 students would do the speech, one right after another. My whole entire point is this: you don't want to just start filming the speech cold. You want to practice this entire speech just so you can get an accurate time and know what's coming when you get up to give this speech. It's okay to practice in the mirror, to see your facial expressions, to see what it is that you look like, but you always want to practice in front of someone, whether that's your friends, your significant other. I've had students say they practice in front of their pets. One of the more hilarious things some of my students have said in my other classes I've taught where we have speeches, I've had some students say, for punishment for their children, they had to practice their speech. Their children had to listen to them practice their speech. That was their punishment. That's how they got grounded. And I thought that was pretty funny. But you just want to practice in front of somebody. You don't ever want to go into a speech cold. And it's pretty easy to determine who's going into a speech cold, meaning they haven't practiced before. This speech should be an extemporaneous speech. Extemporaneous means you're using some form of preparation, such as a working outline or a preparation outline, but you've practiced so much that you know what's going to be said in each main idea in your intro and your conclusion. Impromptu speech is an organized speech with little to no practice. Manuscript, you're just speaking you're writing out the speech word for word, and then you're speaking word for word from that manuscript. And memorize is just you've memorized the manuscript that you wrote. Of these 4 speech types, you're trying to do extemporaneous. I will give you some advice because I want everyone to do well on this speech. Some of you will try to impromptu this speech. With my public speaking background, it'll be pretty easy to determine within the first 20 seconds if you're impromptuing the speech or if you've practiced. Moreover, if you try to impromptu, or as some people say, ad-lib, this speech as you go along, it will not yield you the best grade. I'm just going to be flat out honest there. I want you to make the best possible grade here, and the best possible grade will be made by you practicing your speech. So just some tips for effective presentations. Just be natural, be conversational, try not to be robotic. It's the thing about public speaking, it's just like you're giving a speech to your friends or to your family, but more people look at it as being so formal that they have to speak in a formal tone. And if you're not accustomed to speaking in a formal tone, it can come off very awkward. It comes off as less conversational, and the less conversational it is, the less likely your audience is to pay attention. So you just want to be natural. Just breathe. Be natural, like you're having a conversation with anyone. Make sure you're dressing appropriately in public speaking. This is a business and professional class, so I expect business and professional dress when you're giving your public speech. Consider this to be almost a presentation as if you were going into a job in the final interview, and your final interview was to give a PowerPoint presentation over the company. You wouldn't go into that final interview in jeans and a t-shirt. So I expect professional dress for this particular speech. Make sure you don't start speaking until everyone's ready and that you're pausing before you start. This gives a sense of letting people know I'm getting ready to give this speech and I'm relaxing. I'm giving myself time to relax. And make sure you keep your notes to a minimum. I encourage you not to speak on note cards if possible. Note cards tends to almost always end in a disaster. Why? Because you get so shuffled with the note cards that before you know it, instead of watching you speak, we're watching you shuffle around your note cards to get to the correct note card or the appropriate note card. The other thing about note cards when it comes to public speaking, because the cards are so small, you have to write in a smaller font, and moreover, most of you handwrite your note cards, and the question becomes, can we always read handwriting, especially when we're nervous, especially when it's that small, and we're nervous on a very small note card. So you want to be aware of this. Just a couple of things about your vocals when you're giving a speech. Make sure that your volume is at an appropriate level, not only in the interview room in real life, but also for this video. One of the things you want to be aware of is, can Professor Stewart hear me speak on the video? So you want to review this video before you submit it. How fast or how slow are you going? Your speech rate. All of this plays a part into whether the audience is paying attention. Some of you in your base company might come across certain words or phrases that you've never heard before, or that might be hard to pronounce. You want to practice those. Practice with your articulation and your pronunciation so that it comes across correct over the video, and that it comes across correct in real life if you were to ever give a real life presentation in this over something similar. Make sure you're always constantly looking at your audience. Keep in mind I'm part of the audience too in the video, so you want to be aware about that. And try not to overdo the gestures. Remember, we gesture for emphasis, so we shouldn't always be gesturing or having hand motions, as students tend to say. I will say this, your gestures should be natural. This shouldn't be practiced. They shouldn't be robotic. They should just be come natural to you. So here are your speech requirements. This should be a 5 to 7 minute speech in length. Remember, if you go under or over time, points will be deducted. So if you go under 5 minutes, points are deducted. If you go over 7 minutes, points are deducted. And the further you go under or over, the more points that will be deducted. A PowerPoint or a Prezi is required, and this is definitely possible in this speech, so you need to be aware of how to properly implement that into your speech-making process if you're giving this speech at home. There needs to be 5 orally cited sources. I will count the website of the base company that you give. I would deem that to be credible for this particular speech and this class. I have a rubric that I will use for grading purposes. I'll upload that rubric to the informative speech file folder in the content tab of D2L. You don't need to print that out. That's just for your convenience. That's just for you to see what it is that I'll be grading you on. And professional dress is expected. And I'll be honest, I'm expecting a little bit more professional dress than I do for my other classes because this is a business and professional class. You should be mimicking how you would look if you were to walk into your base company to actually give this speech. So I'm going to upload, there are 2 informative speech quick hits that I will upload. This is the first of the 2. I'm now going to jump off of this and go over the second of the 2, which goes into more specifics about the informative speech requirements for your informative speech over your base company. As I said before, if you have any questions, don't be afraid to email me, but I ask that you post it on the informative speech discussion board because your classmates might have a similar question, and it's best so that they see your question and they see my answer so that everyone gets the same information.